Coverage of the Cricket World Cup here continues. Your usual fill of thrashings, shocks, thrills, and spills. Time for our usual trip off to the boundary. And as always, you are welcome here on the Coach's Corner. Yes, people, as always, welcome to the corner, and this is the Off to the Boundary show. Normally, we would have this on a Monday, but in lieu of some certain delays, I think we had the Premiership football from England, of course, with Spurs beating Fulham, and of course, football taking centre stage. We pretty much pushed it back to today, and in lieu of wanting to have some discussions on the results of the matches that have taken place and possibly have some predictions, we will make this show probably around about 45 minutes so that people can have enough time to, just watch the show, have their say, and have enough time to watch the football. Of course, it's Newcastle United and Manchester City, among others, who are playing tonight. Arsenal and Manchester United had their evenings in the floodlights, with both of them securing wins, possibly by the skin of their teeth in some ways. But look, a win's a win and 3 points are 3 points. And of course, wins being wins in that particular respect. The last time we convened, of course, was on a Saturday, and I wasn't able to be there for that. And I believe that among the games that were discussed were Sri Lanka huffing and puffing and finally beating the Netherlands, and England's campaign reaching an absolute nadir with a crushing defeat to South Africa. And since then, there have been quite a few games played. Sunday's game, of course, was a really mouth-watering one, the top-of-the-table clash, really, between the two teams that were still unbeaten in the tournament, India and New Zealand. And the headline says it all: the Indian juggernaut continued to roll on. Now, we're obviously going to take a look at the game in question in a little bit more detail, and hopefully, if we can get some people joining the stream, that would be fantastic. I think a lot of people were expecting that it would be at 7:30 UK time, but obviously I wanted to make the most of I actually wanted to make it half an hour earlier so that we could have a little bit more in terms of in-depth discussions, especially in lieu of the football. And just want to make sure I get this result over here, and I've got it. So this particular game between India and New Zealand, just taking a bit of time to load. Actually, you know what? To heck with Cricket Phone. Might as well use BBC Sport instead. And we will, of course, show you everything. Now, this particular game, and we do actually have a guest, and I want to say welcome to Arnie G to the Coach's Corner. Good to see you, and how are you?
Arnie, how are you doing? First time?
Yeah,
doing the stream with yourself.
Can't complain. So you joined in good time, and we were just about to talk about the first of the games that have been played after the last program, and the first one, of course, was the India-New Zealand game. I'm just going to talk a little bit about that, and let me just share the screen, if you don't mind.
Go on.
But by the way, first of all, I don't think we've seen you here on the corner before, so welcome. And,
I've been on with Hansel, probably for the first cricket stream, but done a few football ones. I think a couple. No.
Okay, that's cool. So, right. So normally, as usual. So normally, as usual, I think we'd ask our newcomers about their cricket history and how often you've played the game. And did you enjoy playing as a child, and do you still play now?
Well, actually played for my university almost 10 years ago.
Beautiful.
Like some time. I played for a local club down where I reside as well. So that was an experience.
So what was your university?
Kingston.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I know that there are some I know that there are some universities which do have tie-ups with first-class teams. So I don't know if you necessarily had the opportunity to experience that, but obviously you clearly, you've had some experience in the game, and you do have a good grounding. So, were you a batsman, a bowler, an all-rounder?
I'd say more of a bowler, but I could bat the tail because I just like to swing it. So yeah, it's that
Oh
patience
yeah,
factor. I'm more medium pace. As I grew up, I noticed that's more suited. I like to think as a fast bowler when I just got into the game at 9, 10, and then my pace was a bit off, and I also like the slow delivery as well. Sometimes
oh
between
yeah,
overs,
nice.
you'd catch the
Right.
batsman out. So plus, I
Yeah,
like a good
you know,
swing. I mean, who doesn't, eh?
yeah, I mean, it's not easy to maintain the pace sometimes, because a
Mm,
lot of coaches can sometimes take a look at people's actions and say, you know what, if you aren't able to generate that sort of speed or that swing with the old ball, or that sort of speed
yeah,
with the new ball, if you can't seam it properly, if you don't have the upright position, then just bowling quickly won't really help you. And
yeah.
you've got to get everything spot on in terms of your rhythm, your run up, and how you release the ball and so forth. So, yeah, it's good. And yeah, so I'm
Indoor
really
cricket
glad
as
that
well.
you're here. Yes, I'm really glad that you're here, and welcome once again to the program. And
Yep.
so this is basically the situation of the game. It was played at the Himachal Pradesh Cricket Stadium in Dharamsala, with Rohit Sharma winning the toss and opting to field first. And we take a look at the New Zealand innings. Obviously, Daryl Mitchell starring with a brilliant knock of 130, five sixes and nine fours in his innings. Rachin Ravindra continuing his good tournament with a nice knock of 75, a little bit slower than expected. Not the best of starts, of course, with Devon Conway getting out for a duck. And then the thing about one-day cricket is that
He played
you
for the
can
county, I
have...
suppose. Well,
Huh?
Conway, just noting out that he played for the county that I support once upon a
Oh,
time, not too
beautiful.
long ago, actually. Yeah,
Which county was that?
in England, Somerset. Somerset.
Somerset. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, but apart from Ravindra and Mitchell, no other batsman was really able to make much of a contribution. And the biggest star of the show was obviously Mohammad Sami with his excellent spell of 5 for 54. The bowlers weren't exactly economical, but they did the job they had to do. Kuldeep Yadav, of course, smashed around the ground, but he picked up two very important wickets of the captain, Tom Latham, and Glenn Phillips, who's always quite dangerous on his day. And then none of the other batsmen were really able to contribute. So that was pretty much the story of New Zealand's innings. A huge partnership, of course, of 159 between Ravindra and Mitchell was pretty much the highlight of their innings. And apart from that, it really was a case of wickets being lost at regular intervals, two ducks in the two ducks in the innings, and two scores of one, single digits. In fact, after Mitchell and Ravindra, the highest run scorer was Glenn Phillips, in fact. And then taking a look at the Indian innings, it's quite clear to see that the bowlers, batsmen, have pretty much been dominant throughout the tournament. Rohit Sharma getting off to a brilliant start with a nice breezy 46 before being bowled by Lockie Ferguson. Shubman Gill also contributing to that 71-run partnership for the first wicket. And there was a little bit of a mini crisis in a way. I mean, I wouldn't say a crisis perhaps, but then two more half-century partnerships of 52 for the third wicket and 54 for the fourth pretty much was enough to see them through a pretty difficult spell. And then, of course, there was a bit of a mix-up, I believe, between Kohli and Surya Kumar Yadav, which meant that he ended up being sent packing. But then vice captain Ravi Jadeja, yeah,
that was on Kohli. That run out
yeah,
was Kohli's fault. So I
yeah,
think he
yeah.
put his hands up. You could tell from his face. So I think Sky sacrificed his wicket.
You could say that, and it was a bit of a shame. But obviously, with Kohli being set almost about to get a century, only to be dismissed by Henry. It was unfortunate for him in a way. Matt Henry, of course, getting his man. But by the time Henry got his man, of course, India were 269 for 6, 5 runs away from victory. And of course, that partnership of 78 between Kohli and Jadeja pretty much saw India through with no real fuss. And as for the bowlers, well, they toiled. They tried to keep it tight. 48 overs tells you that they really tried their best to avoid it being a very quick defeat, but they just weren't able to find that penetration. And I think the batsmen have looked really good. So it's quite clear to me that India have obviously used their mastery of the conditions over here in India to make the most of their batting, especially. And with their batsmen being in such fine form, the bowlers have really had to just make sure they did their bit, whether it was the seamers or the spinners. A lot of them have contributed. Sadly, we haven't seen too much of Ashwin Ravichandran, but with Kuldeep Yadav and Ravi Jadeja being able to bowl well enough to tie up one end, Ashwin's services have not really been needed, although you will expect him to come back into the attack the next time they play on a spinning track. But with New Zealand, I think it's fair to say that once again, you know, it's a little bit of a case of lack of consistency maybe among their batsmen, because if you can see that one or two batsmen might make a big score, but the other ones can't really contribute that much. And I think it could very well be their inconsistency with their batting that could actually cost them the further they get into the tournament, because they are still doing impressively well, but they do have quite a few weaknesses, especially given that their bowling at times has not necessarily looked very penetrative. So if you saw the match, Arnie, what did you think of it?
To be honest, first and foremost, I wasn't actually expecting to win this game. I thought the Kiwis were spot on favourites, and I was pretty impressed with the way we played, even the chase and the way we contained them, because at one point it did look like they're going to cross 300. So I'd say the bowlers came back really well. And then obviously the batsmen done their job. At that point, the halfway stage, I was confident that we should chase this down. To me, it was like a warm-up game, because I think both teams, if it's fair to say, are more or less through to the semis. So for me, this was like a warm-up game. So even if we did lose, which I think we would have done the beginning of the game, thankfully not, it wouldn't have mattered that much, because, yeah, it's more like a rehearsal. I don't know what you think on that, but yeah, that's my take. I'm impressed, but I want to see if we can keep it up. That's my thing, because one of the most painful things would be, it's like you win all these group games and then you just, lose at the wrong time when it's crunch time, either in the semi or even the final if we get there. So
Yeah,
I'm just taking it game by game as it comes.
An excellent strategy. And I think it is fair to say that the lessons from the last few World Cup campaigns can never be forgotten, because ever since winning in 2011, India's record has been one of, obviously in 2015 and 2019, semi-finals and no better. Yeah. But that is, of course, a good mentality to have. And, of course, it is fair to say that New Zealand, thanks to their terrific start so far, should more or less have one foot in the semi-finals. But New Zealand do still have some tough games to play against South Africa and resurgent Australia, who we will be speaking about later on. And India also have to play South Africa and Australia.
This quick one. Sorry, you mentioned South Africa. To me, they're minnows. I don't really rate them the same way. I know they've got some good wins this tournament, but overall, do you really see them as the same force that they used to be?
Well, we're going to talk. We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about that a little bit, obviously, because because like, see, their games are coming up, and we will obviously speak about them. But I think it's fair to say that one team whose tournament could very well end up being over before too long, because this particular team, of course, has a reputation for being very unpredictable, and we will talk about them. But first, we've got some comments here. Big up, said Pargav, and another question. Why is it that spinners in England play on tougher tracks for spin and struggle in spin-friendly matches? I'll probably give my perspective on this, and then I think it's quite fair to say that it's a question of conditioning more than anything else, because I think spinners in England, it's fair to say that the majority of them don't really focus too much on necessarily taking wickets as they do containment. And you also have a situation where England have never really had a top quality leg spinner. I think Chris Schofield is one I do remember, along with Ian Salisbury, but neither of them really made much of a headway in the cricketing world. And I'm sure several England fans from days gone by will remember them. I know Mr. B might remember them. Maybe our dear friend Kenny Ken will remember them. But England's most successful spinner never even had the honor of taking 300 wickets. It was Derek Underwood who finished with 297. So it's a question of trying to contain batsmen more than actually trying to get wickets necessarily. And when you are conditioned to playing on those pitches, when you have those spin-friendly tracks, they can either be really helpful or hurtful. It's a little bit like when you bowl with a new ball, it doesn't swing so much, but it seams very well. And so if you're able to get the seam position right, you either get your delivery spot on and can take hatfuls of wickets, or if you aren't able to quite have that control, you can be tanked around the ground. I think it's quite fair to say as well that the batsmen in those spin-friendly conditions are well conditioned to playing those sort of bowlers, so they have to learn how to play spin. India's batsmen more or less struggle against the short stuff, but they love playing spin because they know how to play. It's not just a case of standing at your crease and sweeping all the time the way Mike Gatting did in 1987. It's about using your feet to dance down the track, watch the flight of the ball perfectly, and then hit it over the ground. And it's basically a case of England's bowlers not being able to develop the variety they need to ensure that they can get the batsmen out as much. And I think it's fair to say that while Rashid has done quite well, Moeen Ali has struggled. So that's pretty much the case when it comes to these English bowlers. And I think one exception, of course, has been a certain Madhusudan Singh Panesar. Absolutely loved watching him bowl in the subcontinental conditions, and especially in the UAE. It was Panesar, in fact, who really was England's best bowler as England secured a series victory in India, thanks to mainly the batting of Alistair Cook and Kevin Peterson. But the bowling of Panesar in particular, it was Panesar, I would say, who brought out the best in Graham Swan. Swan, for me, on another subject, and I think Kenny will agree with me, was a bit of a loudmouth and not really that much of a great bowler. But Panesar, had he been given much more confidence, would have gone on to become one of the all-time greats, in my opinion. It was sad how his career faded away. To me, he'll always be a cult hero. He knew how to really exploit the conditions very well, and he was one of those rare gems. I'm sorry for talking my tongue off, Arnie, but I'm sure you might have a lot to say about that, given how you've played a lot on those pitches in England.
I pretty much second what you just said. I feel at the minute they are missing a Panesar like spinner, because he's one of the what you just summed up at the minute. I'll go with that. I couldn't have said it any better. Apart from maybe a Panesar type spinner. At the minute, if I'm thinking of one on current form, one for the future, it'll be that Rehan Ahmed guy. I think looks promising.
I definitely would like to see Jack Leach developing a little bit more. And of course, with Panesar having had a lot of coaching and exposure to the Indian environment in a way, that also has helped him. One spinner who could have developed himself was Nayan Doshi, son of the former Indian spinner Dilip Doshi, who of course settled in England. Nayan, of course, played for Surrey, and it was just a shame that he was never considered. But, hopefully England can learn their lessons from this and start to look to develop some more attacking spinners. I think it's fair to say that as well as Moeen Ali has done in tests, when it comes to the limited overs endeavors, he's quite simply not very penetrative in a way, and the subcontinental conditions are not really his cup of tea. And Pargav saying South Africa putting up 300 every single game, and a nice quip from Hanno saying apparently we promised England we wouldn't score 400 against them. Promises kept. And Bailey Francis of Villa TV saying big up, guys, and thanks a lot for joining. And now, of course, we will continue with our roundup of the games. And I did say that Pakistan might not really have much of a chance in this tournament, and this is a reason why. Afghanistan continuing their brilliant run. It's very easy to forget that unlike the teams like the West Indies and Sri Lanka, Afghanistan earned their place in the World Cup on merit by virtue of their ODI form. They certainly gave a fine account of themselves in the Asia Cup as always, making their matches a little bit close. And of course, against Pakistan, you'd normally think that 9 times out of 10 it would be a Pakistan win, but this time around it was Afghanistan who came up trumps. This, of course, took place at the Chidambaram Stadium in Chennai, where I live right now. And Babar Azam winning the toss, opting to bat, hoping that the seamers and the spinners would do a bit of a job, given that it would normally start to play better for the bowlers later on. And you could see Abdullah Shafiq doing well with a half century at the top of the order. Babar also coming good with 74. But once again, the batting inconsistency is coming to the fore, with Imam and Rizwan getting out quite early. Shakil not lasting very long. Some good knocks of 40 from Shadab Khan and Iftikhar Ahmed, both at much better than a runner ball. Iftikhar in particular slamming 4 sixes and a couple of boundaries. But 282 for 7 under the circumstances was never really going to be a big enough target. Special mention to Mohammad Nabi for his excellent economy rate, and also to Noor Ahmed for taking 3 wickets for 49. 2 wickets, of course, for Naveen ul Haq at the top of the order. And although obviously Azmatullah Omarzai was very, very expensive, the other bowlers more than did their job in not really allowing the batsmen to run away with it. And when it came to the Afghanistan batsmen, a much vaunted bowling attack led by Hassan Rauf and Shaheen Afridi, they just weren't quite able to make any kind of inroads. And full credit to Rahmanullah Gudbaz and Ibrahim Zadran for an absolutely magnificent partnership of 130 for the first wicket. You could say that it broke their backs, and they never really were able to quite recover their confidence from there. 60 runs for the second wicket exactly between Zadran and Rahmat Shah, and then Rahmat and Hasmatullah Shahidi, the captain, seeing them through quite brilliantly with a partnership of an unbroken partnership of 96. So Pakistan's bowling once again being, exposed for relying too much on Shaheen Afridi and Hassan Rauf and a few others. Shadab Khan also proving ineffective, and Iftikhar Ahmed didn't really do very much. I think Naseem Shah's injury before the tournament was really a body blow for them. And it is quite fair to say that with their bowling in disarray like this and their batsmen not being consistent, we can't depend on Pakistan's unpredictability to see them through, because this is a much longer tournament. And you might remember, Aaron, in the 2020 World Cup, when they contrived to lose to Zimbabwe, everyone was talking about how their tournament was pretty much over before it started. But then they dug deep and they benefited from an absolute shocker, which Hano knows too well. I won't mention that. And then qualified for the semi-finals, went on to reach the final against England in a repeat of the 92 ODI World Cup in Australia. But thankfully, England got their measure of revenge. Delighted to have covered that and seen that, because just in case you haven't noticed, I happen to be an England fan, although I do consider India to be my second team. But this time around, I think it's fair to say that, it might be a case of the lack of preparation, the lack of real application as such among the bowlers, and the batsmen also not being very consistent. And Pakistan, I think it's fair to say that in as much as England look in absolute disarray, they do have plenty of chances to redeem themselves, but they will have to get a move on. But Pakistan, having suffered the losses that they have, I don't see them progressing in the tournament. And as for Afghanistan, they're certainly not going to progress in the tournament either, because they do have much tougher matches against teams that aren't going to show them any mercy. But my goodness, how impressed are you with Afghanistan, and how disappointed are you with Pakistan?
I'm quite happy that Afghanistan did it against my rivals, which is great to see. So pretty impressive. Let's not forget they've done it in the T20s as well, on neutral territory, when they played earlier this year in Easter. Even though they sent a B team out, but that's on them. You lose an official series, it's on you. It's the first one in a World Cup in the longer format. I think that's unheard of. I was so sure. I didn't even tune in for this game, Manny, because I thought it's gonna be an easy, not easy, but I thought Pakistan would definitely get the job done. I didn't think it'd be a walkover though. I thought it may be close, but I was not expecting this. My goodness. As for Pakistan, I mean, I'm loving it, so I want it to continue. Apart from when they play the Aussies or Kiwis, that's the only time I'll probably support them. I think they are the favorites to beat South Africa, so I'm waiting for that game before I make an overall assessment, if that makes sense, so that I can really read into their game even more. Because the India game, that's always, as we know, what the case is. But I wouldn't want to play them though. I'll tell you this now, in the semis, because they always come back with a kind of different, unfound vengeance, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But you know, here's the thing. You can't, just make yourself the cornered tigers every single time. You've got to accept that consistency is always the name of the game, and it's not really fair to expect to play badly and then perform well whenever you can. Because the thing about the tournament with this particular format is that if you allow yourself, if you end up allowing yourself to be defeated very badly, it will count against you in the long run. You take a look at England, who are now, of course, bottom of the table, and deservedly so. Even if they were able to pull off a few wins, they're going to need some Herculean efforts to try to get back into contention. But, it is what it is. Now, of course, we're coming to a team that you consider minnows, which is exceptionally harsh because, as Bhargav himself has said, they have been very impressive in posting totals of over 300. And I realized that the loss to the Netherlands was a huge shocker. Nobody was expecting that by any means. The Netherlands have also proved that they belong in the in this tournament at one-day level, but
not after today. I'm very angry with Holland.
You can't we'll come to that. We'll come to that. I promise you, we'll come to that. We will come to that. And listen, before we go any further, let's accept that teams like Afghanistan and Netherlands will have moments where, they are shown up for their lack of quality, but you have to say that they will take them as learning experiences. And of course, if you're angry with the Netherlands, then you also have to consider Bangladesh not exactly stepping up when it mattered. This particular game in question between South Africa and Bangladesh taking place at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai, with South Africa winning the toss and Aiden Markram, the stand-in captain, having no hesitation in batting first on the pitch like this. And once again, we see Quinton proving himself to be the cock of the walk with a blistering innings of 174 of 140 balls, 7 sixes and 15 boundaries in that gargantuan knock. And disappointments for Hendricks and Van der Dussen, but stand-in captain Markram contributing with a nice little innings of 60. And then, of course, Heinrich Klaassen, of course, showing what a class batsman he is.
He's on something else, that guy.
8 sixes and 2 boundaries in his huge knock. And then David Miller adding a few more finishing touches. And the highlights, obviously, a 130-run partnership for the third wicket between Markram and de Kock. And then de Kock continuing with Klaassen for another partnership of 142 for the fourth wicket this time around. And then, of course, a nice 65-run partnership for the fifth wicket, which pretty much added more gloss to the scoreline. So 3 really big innings, even if the likes of Van der Dussen and Hendricks weren't really able to contribute. And as predicted, the bowlers were pretty much hit around the park. Special commendation for Mahmudullah, 2 wickets for 67, but he was the most expensive. And if they were either expensive, they weren't exactly... they were either expensive or lacking in penetration, really, or any kind of edge. And of course, when it came to Bangladesh's batting, they weren't really expected to contribute very much. And once the likes of Shakib Al Hassan and Mushfiqur Rahim went without troubling the scorers, you just knew that Bangladesh were pretty much in trouble. A golden duck, of course, for Hussain Shanto. Mahmudullah, who was a surprise late call-up to the squad, being Bangladesh's star with a sparkling run of ball 111, but he was really the only one who made any real contribution, with some low double-figure scores being the order of the day. In fact, Lytton Das was the second highest scorer after that with 22, which tells the whole story. And then South Africa's 5 bowlers, Jansen, Williams, Kutsi, Rabada, and Maharaj, sharing all the 10 wickets between them. Kutsi in particular starring with 3 for 62, 2 more for Jansen, 2 for Lizard Williams, and Rabada also coming in, and Keshav Maharaj tying up an end quite magnificently. Arguably the best spinner in the South African team, and I'm sure Hanno will agree with me on that. And it was a pretty routine win, and the margin says it all, 149 runs. So I know you consider South Africa to be minnows. They've never won a global tournament. But
That's
you've
why.
got to but listen, you've got to admit that on the type of form that they've showed, especially when you consider how they huffed and puffed to ensure that they would qualify for the tournament without having to enter the qualifiers, I think it's fair to say that they have pretty much hit the ground running. And in Heinrich Klaassen and David Miller, they've got 2 of the best batsmen against spin in this whole tournament. They've been smacking runs all over the park. We absolutely got it wrong when we asked them to bat first when we played them in Mumbai, and that was a dreadful decision, which rightly should cost Jos Buttler his captaincy, although we all know that that might not happen. And then when you give South Africa the chance to bat first and have those 2 coming in at the end, you just know that there will be pyrotechnics. And of course, with the top order batsmen also doing quite well, even if they are perhaps a little bit inconsistent, you know, you've got to say that it's their batsmen that are winning them the games. The bowlers, of course, are doing what they have to do. So you can't call them minnows now. You've got to say that they should reach the semi-finals quite comfortably.
For me, the biggest upset was of this whole tournament. It's going to sound ludicrous, but for me personally, it's that South Africa win against Australia. Not the Holland one against South Africa, because that's lesser of a minnow against a minnow. So as much as it was an upset, I think that South Africa win against the Aussies has to be the biggest upset of the tournament so far. I mean, I don't know. Afghanistan, Pakistan is very close to as well. But I'm on a crossroads on that, because remember, Afghanistan have done it in the T20. So it's like, as much as it's a surprise, I was very surprised when South Africa beat the favorites to win this World Cup. And also, let's not forget, they haven't played India yet, but they've beaten a stronger opposition. But at the minute, that's why I'm saying it's an upset. And they also got whitewashed, Manny. 3-0 in their own yard by the Aussies. I know they played a B team, but so did the Aussies as well. You can't even win one game at home, even though it's Australia, fine. But nah, if you get Aussie washed at home, for me, that don't cut ice.
No, but here's the thing. The last ODI series they played, look, I think it was actually a 5-match. It was a 5-match ODI series between South Africa and Australia. Australia won the first 2, but South Africa won the final 3. So this Australia, but I mean, look, T20 and ODI cricket are chalk and cheese in many ways. You know, you have different batting approaches, different strategies, and so forth. ODI cricket for me will always be a very happy medium between T20 and Test cricket, because at least in ODIs, you've got to have a little bit more in terms of thought involved, because it's a much longer sort of game. It is a bigger test of your patience. And, you know, in T20, I know, I get that. But in T20, for example, as I was talking about with another contributor, you know, you can pretty much have a slapdash sort of approach to batting and end up finding a way to win. But in ODI cricket, sometimes you need to also have the patience of a test match in order to really win. And the strategy involved is also going to be a lot more than that. And coming into the tournament, the Australian team were also in absolute tatters in many ways. Their spinner, Adam Zampa, was bowling with a bit of a poor condition. He has recovered a little bit. They seem to be hitting their stride quite magnificently, though. But we will get to Australia in a minute. But look, I think the Proteas are looking absolutely dominant, and I remember predicting in the tournament that they would definitely reach the semi-finals. I also did predict that England would, somehow go all the way, but fat lot of good that's done so far. You never know, though. I mean, we still have to play Australia, we have to play Pakistan, and
Yeah,
I just
I
hope
will.
that somehow the boys will find their way to get their act together. But it is still going to be hard. We also have to play India. I'm not looking forward to that necessarily, but
Yeah,
it's still not quite over for us yet, despite how dire our position
it's very
is.
hard though.
And we got Chelsea fan in the building saying big up. South Africa with the win must have made Hanno very happy. Yep, he's always happy. Of course, I mean, with South Africa set to play the Rugby World Cup final
Yeah,
this coming
that one.
weekend, he is, of course, a very happy chappy. Another reminder to people: do keep hitting the like button and sub to the channel. Goes without saying. And as for Bangladesh, I think the controversy surrounding the whole exclusion of Tamim Iqbal didn't really help, and it looks as though they are having to make the most of what they can possibly get. They are getting the starts they need, but you can't deny that a batsman like Iqbal will always be an impact player and a change maker. And now, of course, we're going to take a look at the final game today, which is, of course, Australia devouring the Dutch cheese. That is, and
Just before you move on, Manny, I'll quickly say
yeah,
something
go ahead.
about South Africa. If you give me a choice, if I'm picking a favorable opposition to play in the semis, I want South Africa. It's me not being cocky or anything. I'm just very confident that we can deal with them. So I'd rather play South Africa over, say, a Pakistan or someone. That's my pick in it for the semi. So I'm hoping they
I
can
get
get
that.
both. They should make the semis now,
I
but
get
I'd
that. I
pretty
get that.
much pick them.
I get that. I get that. And obviously, the weight of history will be against them. You just wonder, though, if they're willing to, finally decide, what, enough is enough. Let's not play with any fear. Let's just go out and get it. And I think it's fair to say that Australia are playing without any fear right now, because despite their terrible start, they've just decided, look, let's lay everything on the line and go for it. And of course, at the Arun Jaitley Stadium in Delhi, Pat Cummins had no hesitation in opting to bat first after winning the toss. And Marsh, disappointing, but David Warner once again continuing an absolute renaissance with the bat. A sparkling innings of 104. Steve Smith chipping in with 71. Labuschagne, of course, with a nice innings of 62. Very splendid knock from him indeed. And Glenn Maxwell smashing what is probably the fastest World Cup century of 44 balls, 106, with 8 sixes and 9 fours, overshadowing David Warner, which isn't a very easy thing to do. He basically scored twice as many runs as he took as the minutes he took to bat, which is impressive in itself. And although there were 3 sixes and 11 fours in Warner's innings at the top of the order, which pretty much ensured that the Dutch would always be on the back foot, it was Maxwell who really broke their backs. Mad Max pretty much running riot there. A failure for Cameron Green, although being run out was very unfortunate. Cummins also slapping a couple of fours to, add a little bit more gloss. And just missing out on the cherished 400 mark. They ended up on 399 for 8. Highlights, of course, being the second wicket partnership of 132 between Warner and Smith, and 84 runs between Warner and Labuschagne. Wickets falling at regular intervals, but then Maxwell and Cummins combining brilliantly for a partnership of 103 for the 7th wicket, with Cummins pretty much being a spectator, as it were. And that was it, effectively. You just knew that despite the Herculean efforts of Logan Van Beek, who took 4 for 74, and also Bastian de Leyder, who took 2 for 115, the figures tell the story. Only Colin Ackerman was able to avoid getting hit around the park, with the rest of them going for about 6, 7, 8, or 11 and over. De Leyder in particular was very, very expensive.
I think most expensive ever.
Probably, you could say.
After
I
Nick
think
Lewis
so, yeah.
and one other guy.
I think it might be. And
They
of
went
course,
for
when we
109,
go,
if I'm not wrong.
yeah, we will check that out. I think you might be right.
I think he's
And
delayed
then, of
us
course,
made the record.
Yeah, and then of course, when the Dutch batted, they never started very well. Um, once the first wicket fell and wickets started falling on a regular basis, you just knew that it would be effectively game over. Um, Three ducks in the innings, including two golden ducks near the end, Van der Merwe and Van Meekeren, not lasting for very long. And Zampa, of course, missing out on a hat trick, but it was very much a case of when it would possibly happen. But he did take 2 wickets and 2 balls on 2 occasions, finishing with the impressive figures of 4 for 8 from 3. Every other bowler chipped in. Mitchell Marsh, of course, 2 for 19 with his medium pace of 4 overs. And the number of deliveries they bowled, it was 21 overs. It might as well have been a 20-over innings. The batsmen just came in and got out almost as quickly as they came in. And not one batsman, not even Captain Edwards, an Aussie himself, by the way, was able to offer that much in terms of any kind of resistance. So, look, I know you did say, obviously, that you were upset with the Netherlands, and they basically proved in your eyes that they didn't belong. But look, we can't be too harsh on these guys because, yes, there's a combination of some seasoned county professionals, but also a lot of amateurs in this team. And the more exposure and development that they can receive, the better it can be, especially for the development of cricket in the Netherlands, especially with a lot of youngsters in the team who would like to develop themselves and play elsewhere in Europe and really come up to go on to play for the Netherlands one day. And they get the balance right as well in recruiting seasoned professionals from South Africa and Australia who choose to come over to the Netherlands and play for the country. And as for Australia, well, they didn't have the best of starts, but Zampa's recovery has certainly been emblematic of how they've recovered brilliantly as a team. I've never really rated Zampa as a bowler, but he has somehow been able to do well with by picking up several wickets. Having said that, we must put into perspective the fact that some of the opposition against whom he's gotten those wickets have not been the best. And the seamers as well, it must be noted, haven't exactly been leading the way in terms of taking wickets, but they've done a job. And in as much as we can say that the Aussie batsmen have done well, I think it's quite fair to say that their bowling could be what lets them down, especially against the likes of South Africa and other teams who will have very explosive batting lineups. So you said that you were upset with this result. Can you be a little bit more specific?
First and foremost, you can't be losing by 300 runs in the World Cup if you're there. Obviously, I know you're there for a reason. And now you're saying about the Dutch players, maybe lack of experience, which I agree with. One of them actually has a great story. He's still working a full-time job. I think it's Engelbrecht, doing a PM role or something. Then they got picked. He got picked from some like district style. I don't know, playing for a different team. It's an incredible story. Have a look when you get chance. Got money in the World Cup. 300 runs. I think it's the heaviest defeat ever. It makes the likes of no disrespect to these other minnows, should I say, Nepal and Mongolia, by the way, who got really smashed in the T20. But 300 runs, come on, like whichever way you put it, you know, at least make it make sense. If you're gonna say they're in the World Cup, then at least live up to the hype a little bit. Like, I'm not saying, oh, don't lose by a big margin, but this is just way beyond.
It is, but you also have to say that Australia were well motivated to do as well as they can and make sure they got their run rate higher. So when you have a situation where the captain wins the toss, bats first, and the batsmen really have a field day and the bowlers get everything spot on, it's a case of everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And look, every single team has had this sort of defeat. Even many of the big, much vaunted teams have had maybe not as big defeats as this, but certainly they've had days where they'd wish the sky would fall on their head. And the Netherlands are certainly not going to be any different of a team. But Australia are recovering, and they do look favourites to reach the semi-finals. Their run rate has now become absolutely magnificent. And as an England fan, I do worry that our tournament will end up becoming over because we can't depend on, big performances. We've got to get our run rate up exponentially high, and facing the likes of Warner and Smith in the devastating form they're in, and of course Mad Max himself, it doesn't really fill me with too much in terms of confidence. So Australia do look good. I remember predicting that Australia would reach the semi-finals, changing that in light of the South Africa result that they had. And now I'm just thinking maybe I was a bit too hasty. But they're battling well, and I think we have to give credit where credit is due. Yeah?
And no one thought South Africa would be there. They look likely now. They can do it. They can still miss out and bottle it, which wouldn't surprise me, by the way. I think they could do it, though, now. Because they had a big win against Bangladesh as well.
Yeah. Well, we are going to
try. Caption. You could also say, Kangaroos sober Dutch courage. Just another one for the archives.
Maybe. I like that. I do like that. But we are now going to try and quickly run through predictions because we've got about 10 minutes until the Champions League football starts. And tomorrow's game from the Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bangalore features England against Sri Lanka. It goes without saying that this is a must-win game for both teams. And Sri Lanka obviously have had more injury problems, of course. They've lost their captain and a few other players, and they've had to call their former captain, Angelo Matthews, to the squad, who wasn't even picked for either the preliminaries or the main tournament. I believe he went in as a travelling reserve, but now, against all odds, he finds himself playing in the fourth World Cup. So they've had a slightly worse tournament than England, who have had to say goodbye to Reece Topley and see Bryden Cast coming in as a replacement. Jofra Archer's also gone home. So this is obviously going to be the game that England will need to win. And England obviously have a much greater potential to win this game than Sri Lanka, given that Sri Lanka also do not have their number one spinner, Hasaranga, who was injured before the tournament. This should be an England win. It goes without saying. The only question is by how big could it be? I'd like to go for, say, a 40-run win or a 5-wicket win. But how do you see this match panning out?
I'm actually going to agree with you. Having said that, Sri Lanka, another set of minnows for me at least. Basing it even on the Asia Cup final, you can't be getting all out for 50. As much as I loved it, don't get me wrong. I'll take that any day. But in this one, I don't see you battering them. But you should get the win here. Should be a comfortable one. Somewhat along the lines of what you mentioned. Maybe get 270 on the board, 280. Bundle them out. Between 220 and, I'd say, 250 if they're lucky. But and I made a prediction, and I'm sticking with it on this stream. You can screenshot wherever you tape it as well. I think the only win they're going to get was against Holland. So far, that's the case. I think it will stay that way. I do see Afghanistan and Bangladesh beating them as well. But let's see if I'm right.
Yeah, I mean, Sri Lanka obviously had to huff and puff and qualify for the tournament via the qualifiers, and it would have been devastating for that island nation with their history of being champions in 1996 if they had failed to make the cut. And of course, on Friday, back here in Chennai, we've got Pakistan against South Africa. This has a South African win written all over it. I do not see the Pakistan bowlers being good enough to...
Pakistan going to win.
You're that confident, are you?
Yeah, Mal. I don't see South Africa doing anything, but they could prove me wrong. But it's got to be Pakistan, surely.
No,
I hope they don't do it. I want South Africa to win. Yeah. But I don't see it happening.
Oh, come on. I mean, you take a look at how they're batting De Kock, Markram, Klassen, Miller, even Jansen's also smacking it around the park. And look, the Pakistan bowling is in disarray right now. When you've got people like Shaheen and Haris also not being able to take too many wickets, you just know that their confidence is low. This has got a Proteas win written all over it. Come on, 60 runs or 7 wickets for the Proteas for me. But I'll tell you what, I'm glad you think Pakistan will win.
30 runs.
This 30 runs or how many wickets?
3 or 4.
Okay, so
I'd say
we've got a clash over here. Arnie predicts a Pakistan win. I predict another Proteas thrashing. We will take a look and see how that goes.
I hope you're right. Saturday.
Yeah. Saturday, we've got a totemic trans-Tasman clash between Australia and New Zealand from Dharamsala. This should be a New Zealand win, although Australia are gaining some fine momentum. But it will be close. It will be close. It will be very interesting to
Should be
see
close.
how the bowlers bowl, because it's fair to say that apart from the spinners, the seamers haven't exactly shone in this tournament so far. So it could very well be a very close New Zealand win, and I'm going to go by maybe 4 wickets or 30 runs.
I'm saying Australia edge it.
By how
I
much?
hope New Zealand can do it because I don't know Australia in the semis, but hey, 20-ish runs, yeah, between 15 maybe as well. 15, it'll be in double digits though for sure. 15 to 25, maybe 30.
Yeah, and if Australia win. And if Australia do win, then this will certainly put them in the semi-finals, and it will make England's chances pretty much non-existent now. But then, of course, Netherlands against Bangladesh, fresh from that 300-run, 109-run creaming. I really don't know if the Netherlands will be able to, muster up a fight against a Bangladesh team which has not been consistent, but certainly does have the ability to put up a performance when it matters. It's not going to be a very comfortable win for Bangladesh either. I would say 4 wickets or 30 runs.
Nah, I think Bangladesh 120 runs. Between 80 and 120. 80 and 120.
And in terms of wickets?
6 or 7.
Okay.
When you say wickets, right? Are you like also bringing overs into play, like with 10 overs?
No overs, no overs. Just the wickets, just the wickets.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes it looks worse than it is. That's the thing with wickets, tricky thing. Like you see when Afghanistan won with 8 wickets to spare, they only had 1 over, so sometimes it looks worse than it is. A 5-wicket win with like 10 overs to spare would be more for victory.
Yeah. And then of course on Sunday, I am going to be out for this because I've got some work to attend attend. But India against England at the Vajpayee Stadium in Lucknow. This clearly has an Indian win written all over it. As much as I am a diehard England supporter, I do not see Jos Buttler's boys doing very much. We creamed India by 10 wickets in the semi-final, which was a wonderful game to see. But those days are long gone. I think India should be able to win this, and this has a very, very comfortable 7-wicket or 60-run win written all over it.
Yeah, I agree. 40 runs, I'd say. 30, 40 runs. 7 wickets, like you said, or 6.
Yeah. And of course, assuming that the next show will be on a Monday, we do have a Monday morning game between morning UK time, that is, between Afghanistan and Sri Lanka. I do remember you saying that Sri Lanka are even bigger minnows and they could end up losing to Afghanistan. And you know what? With the momentum that Afghanistan are in, I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled off a win in this game. 20 runs or 3 wickets.
Kind of same. Overall, if you're going, like, I'll put Sri Lanka before because they won trophies, but on current form, you'd say Afghanistan less of a minnow, but yeah, very, very close. So you're agreeing, yeah? Right. Afghanistan gonna do it.
Yeah, because I mean, like, look, the win against England was definitely a fine win, and you thought that would probably be it for them. But to pull off another win against Pakistan, it was absolutely amazing. And when they get their bowling and batting in sync, it's literally a terrific sight to see. Chelsea fans saying England should win easily. South Africa definitely should beat Pakistan. Hanno saying it is a must-win for South Africa versus Pakistan, as New Zealand and India will be difficult games. Australia should be able to beat New Zealand. Very contentious call that. It could very well be that with the Aussie momentum coming to the fore at the right time, it could very well be. But Australia also will be feeling the scars of not qualifying for the T20 World Cup semi-finals on their home turf, having lost to New Zealand there. So maybe there'll be a few scars from that. Chelsea fans sadly agreeing with me that India should cream England, and also agreeing with Hanno there about the must-win nature of the game. So It is 7:56 p.m. UK time, 4 minutes until kickoff elsewhere around Europe. So we will actually now be ending this stream, and I'm glad that we were able to have as long as we did. Let me start by thanking you very much indeed, Arnie, for coming on. It's been wonderful to have you on, and I am now going to put you in the spotlight so that you can tell us where we can find you on social media or on YouTube or both.
I'm actually on a Facebook page. It's more just for fun and bands, mainly for football. I've done very few cricket videos. Very well, I did one when Somerset won the Blast after 18 years. Anyway, so it's called the Football for Life show. You'll probably be able to find it if you type that in, and it's like a red and black logo. I do post from time to time on there. I will be sharing this probably as well, even though it's a cricket stream. But might as well, even though it's primarily a football channel. But I can always, change from time to time, be more adaptable. So yeah, that's me.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Arnie. And just a little ticker notification here of Hanno's socials. Hanno_coach_corner on Instagram. Hanno70830030 on Twitter. And Coach's Corner 1 on TikTok. Do please follow him. Do please, of course, smash a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And you can catch me over here on this channel as well as we continue to do some work in terms of providing coverage of all sports and not just football. We do cricket, we do rugby, we do as much as we possibly can. So I wouldn't call it flexible, but definitely trying to be a little bit more all-encompassing. So for now, though, thank you all. On social media, you can catch me at Manny Thangatharai 1981. That's my full name and my year of birth on Instagram and Threads. On Twitter, it's just my surname and my year of birth, Thangatharai 1981. And I'm not only on the Coach's Corner, I'm on several other channels on YouTube, but this is where I also really, really enjoy being on and doing some work here. And we will see you all very, very soon. But once again, I'm not going to end this until Arnie comes back so that we can both say goodbye. So take care of yourselves. It's very close to kickoff now. We're out, people. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, Manny.